My oldest son recently became engaged. And so I asked him this question. I said, "Hey, what are you going to do when your girlfriend, now fiance, no longer wants to have sex with you?" And he kind of looked at me like I was strange. Like, why are you asking me this question, mom? But I've been doing this podcast now long enough to realize that this is the number one concern with men. So I wanted to ask him, like, what he's going to do if or when the eventuality comes of that scenario happening. So he's like, well, maybe I'll just, I'd have to accept it. And, sex isn't everything. And there certainly are other age related problems that we do prepare for. Like we all know at 40 years old, our eyes are going to go to crap. Like we start noticing that our arm's just not long enough. But the majority of young people are not prepared for that moment in their marriage when all of a sudden a husband's like, my wife no longer wants to sleep with me. And the women aren't prepared for the moment that at 35, 40 years old, like things start getting dry down there. Like I never knew that was a thing. So if I didn't get that information, being the youngest of 6 girls in a very open family where we're not afraid to discuss things like that, I can only imagine in the majority of typical homes that these conversations are not being had. For most families, discussing anything regarding sex can be considered dirty, inappropriate, and it's really a disservice to our sons and to our daughters that these discussions of what's coming up is not being had. Nobody is telling these women, hey, there's going to come a day you don't want to sleep with your husband. You're going to love him, but you're just not going to think about it anymore. There's come a day where, it's like the Sahara Desert down there. This is going to happen. So what are you going to do about it? How are you going to prepare for that time, that eventuality that will arrive? And so these young couples are entering into marriage blissfully unaware of the roadblocks that lie ahead. And so the lack of awareness, not only from the female side, but also from the man's side, when the time comes, becomes an issue really that men primarily have to deal with because they are on the receiving end of that lack of drive. Sex becomes undesirable for her. It may be painful for her. It can be just flat unimportant to her. Like it literally just doesn't even cross her mind. You guys don't understand that despite her love for you, despite that she could look over at you and think you're the hottest piece of meat that she's ever seen, still have intense like love and adoration for you. And despite all of those things, have zero interest in hitting the sheets. And because men have not been educated about a woman's hormones and what is going to be happening down the road as she ages and progresses, when this time comes, they feel they've been bait and switched. They feel that the woman knew that this was going to happen. She never had the desire for him. It was all a ruse. She entered into the marriage underneath a false pretense because either the Chad she wanted wasn't available or that she wanted him all for his money, which I always find quite laughable as if all you guys in your late 20s and early 30s, everyone's just walking around with like a fat wallet and driving Lamborghinis. And so this lack of sex really impacts the guy, really impacts the men. And how can it not when sex is a core need for men? One of the primary ways in which he expresses and connects emotionally with his wife. And so you ask your wife to go to the doctor to get herself checked out to see where her hormones are at. And this is assuming like she's willing to go, where she'll be told, oh, your hormone levels are normal. Not knowing that doesn't mean they're actually normal, like they're not at the level that she was at her 20s and 30s, meaning that we would expect to see this low level of hormones at your age. So be very aware when you're talking to your doctor of what normal is. And so these doctors who are not hormone specialists will actually either tell your wife that she's normal or will say, just use the lube. I know that's what happened to me. I went and told my gynecologist, hey, things are dry down there. I have to use the lube every single time. That certainly doesn't do a lot for my husband's psyche. That is certainly not an answer that I find acceptable. Or you may have a doctor who is completely outdated as far as the latest studies who are still referencing back to this old study that used to indicate that there's a link between hormone replacement therapy and cancer, which has been completely and utterly debunked. So we have the medical system who is really frankly behind times and just now starting to have discussions about how to properly treat women who are perimenopausal and menopausal. And the reason why I felt it's so important to do this crash course for men on a woman's hormones is so that you can manage your expectations. So you can mentally prepare not only for the perimenopause or menopause time of a woman's life that impacts her sexual desire for you, but really like so that you can mentally prepare for these various cycles that you see throughout your marriage. So now that we have this foundation laid out, let's go ahead and start with this whiteboard over here. Now, today's episode is sponsored by Cup Cozy Pillow. If you are lacking a cup holder just about anywhere, Cup Cozy Pillow has your back. Go ahead and use the link below. You'll see them listed up there, also sold on Amazon or on our website, cupcozypillow.com. Also, I want to take a moment to let you know about my new community. It's free for the first 100 people. So I'm going to link that below. What we do is we take the information and the concepts and the ideas that we start the conversations here on YouTube, and we are able to really have more of a back and forth interaction. Sometimes you have things that you want to talk about that you're not comfortable just dropping in the comments. So go ahead and check out that new community. And also, did you know that 92% of my viewers are not subscribed? Are you friend zoning me? If we've had more than one interaction, I don't want to be in the friend zone. You guys know how that is. So go ahead and hit that like and that subscribe button, and let's start this relationship formally, okay? All right, now let's go ahead and move on. So we're gonna go ahead and get started by looking at a woman's hormones from 3 different angles. And I call these like different cycles. And the first one is from a monthly cycle. I'm having to reach. I hope you can see that. The second one is from the life cycle. And then the third one is from the relationship cycle. I'm just calling it Rilla so we don't have to take too much time here. So what is the monthly cycle? The monthly cycle is that basic 28-day period of time, the normal period cycle that most men are aware of on some basic level. So the life cycle is basically how her hormones are going to change in a broad sense over her lifespan. And then you have the relationship cycle, because what's going on in the relationship, there's other hormones that come into play that activate during certain phases of a relationship. But let's go ahead and talk about the roles of hormones. The first thing that you guys need to know is you really have one primary hormone going on. And I say primary, I know you have others, but the primary hormone regarding sexual desire, it's testosterone. I'm going to call it the T, test. But for women, we actually have 3 different hormones that are going on, which is estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Now, in regards to sexual desire, they play a role in primarily assisting, but they can also play a role in blocking desire. But as a whole, when the hormones are there, they're active, they're going to be much more of an assistant for you. They're going to be much more of the helper that makes your job easier in the creation of sexual desire. My family recently decided to all go on a bike ride. So Michael and I and our 11-year-old twins, we all get on our bikes and we leave the community, and to get to the bike trail is about a mile away, but there's a gradual incline on this whole way up to the bike trail. So we make our way out. The kids and I are huffing and puffing because it's all an incline. Michael is just kind of like, floating along like it's nothing. And the reason why is because Michael's on an electric bike. He has the assist on. If Michael did not have that assist, he would have been huffing and puffing and struggling like we all were too. So he didn't have to rely on the sheer power of his own muscles. But the power of the assist made his job much easier. He had an unfair advantage with that assist. So hormones are very much like the assist on that electric bike. It helps in creating and maintaining that sexual desire, a much easier thing. It allows a man to not have to do so much work. So sure, when the hormones are great, it makes your job easier and you don't really have to build the necessary muscles to create the sexual desire because you have a helper. So when a woman gets to a certain age where her hormones are less, or when she gets to menopause and they just die all together, but now it's much more difficult because you have not been training over the years and strengthening that sexual desire muscle. You have relied too much on the assist. So your sexual desire muscles are not properly trained. And now everything is much more difficult. It takes effort, it takes energy, it takes intentionality. So regardless of how you got here, now you have actually just 3 options. The first option is to just keep riding the bike. And the downside of this is that it's going to be a process. It's going to take some time to redevelop these muscles. You might be sore. It's going to take effort. The second option is that you get rid of that bike and you get a new bike with a new fully loaded assist. So you don't have to take the time to train your muscles. You can just rely on the new assist. The downside to that is that that new bike eventually will become an old bike as well. And then your only course is to continually buy new bikes. The third option is to keep the bike, but decide not to ride it. The downside to that is that you have this fun activity that you used to really enjoy and you just decided it's easier to give it up than to put in the effort. So men, your power assistant has died. Her hormones, the thing that have been helping to create the sexual desire and attraction to you, is no longer as helpful, or it could just not be there altogether. And let me be very clear, this does not mean that she does not love you. It does not mean that she doesn't look at you and think you are handsome and attractive. So men, it's natural when you are being constantly rejected to take it personal. And the constant rejection is so difficult to take that many of you have opted out and said, you know what, I'm just going to stop initiating. Like, I'm done here. But if you can try and take her rejection as not a rejection of you, but maybe of her hormones or lack thereof rejecting you, maybe it will be a little bit easier for you to not take so personally. And really what you have not realized up until now, which is the whole point of me trying to tell you guys this, is that you were probably the passenger. The hormones were probably the one driving the car the whole time. And now that they're not there, now you have to step into the driver's seat. When her hormones finally die, when she finally hits menopause, this is truly the first time it really is all on you. And I don't even think that's a fair statement, because part of that comes from inside in her mental mindset. But this whole time, your ego was taking it that you were the problem when really the hormones were in the driver's seat and you were just along as a passenger. Well, now guess what? You are in the driver's seat. Now, this might seem like a blow, like my wife's attraction has nothing to do with me. No, of course it has something to do with you. But what I'm saying is her willingness and her ability to act upon that attraction has so much to do with what's going on with her hormones. Maybe the time she said yes, she was in the middle of ovulating. So was it really you? So on one hand, you do have to separate out that the hormones are in the driver's seat as long before menopause. And then after menopause, you're in the driver's seat. But her willingness to say yes when you initiate is so primarily driven by hormones. You guys have no idea. And this is probably why you're so frustrated, because the things that work on one day, you do on another day, and then it doesn't work because you had this misguided notion that it was what you were doing, but it was a portion. It wasn't the biggest part. Her hormones and what's going on in her body at that moment is the biggest factor in whether she is going to go ahead and go through with that. So you guys take it so personally and you stop initiating, but the rejection and the bitterness should just be an indication to you that you can no longer rely on these hormones to assist you, that you have to take the time and the effort to train the sexual desire muscles. So let's go ahead and take a minute and dive into these 3 sections that we have started right here. So the monthly cycle is that monthly period that most of you guys at least know about, I would say. And usually it's going to start at the age of 12 and then go all the way up to around 50. 51 is actually the average age of menopause. So in a woman's monthly cycle, it usually runs 28 days. So when it comes to peak sexual desire within that 28-day frame, that is going to occur in around day 10 to 14. And those days start from the first day she has a period. So if her period lasts 5 days, that would be 5 days after her period stopped. And that's typically during the time of ovulation, where she's going to be highly willing to have sex with you. So what happens after she ovulates is now her hormones kind of reverse. And when this switch happens, it can actually even change the type of man that she is attracted to during that time. And during that time of ovulation, that 5-day window, she really wants that raw animalistic, super, alpha masculine type of man. And then once ovulation is done, then the hormones kind of switch and reverse. And then she's more wanting a, soft, romantic, nurturing, cuddly, more the things that we would say more with like a beta type of man. So during just this 1 month cycle, there's a lot of variability going in within a woman's body. And it's all is going to play into how often or how willing she wants to have sex with you. And then on top of this, you have other factors like birth control pills, depression meds, or anxiety meds, which are going to impact a woman's desire. And if you are a man who is currently dating a woman or engaged to a woman, and this entire time she's been on birth control pills, I would highly advise that you have her switch birth control, because it has been studied and proven that the kind of man that a woman selects while on birth control pills is different than when she goes off of them. So you think that she's attracted to you because of you, but it's her birth control pills that are attracted to you. What do you do once you're married and she goes off of that and you want to have kids, and now she realizes, oh man, I'm not attracted to this guy at all, and you're both confused. So that's kind of the process of the monthly menstrual cycle. So let's go ahead and move on to the life cycle. And when I'm talking about the life cycle, I'm talking about the life cycle and aspect to the life cycle of hormones. Typically, yes, the woman's hormones really start at 12, but she's not really going to be super involved in relationships until like 20. So from 20 to 50 here, let's talk about like what happens during the ages in regards to hormones. From 20 to 30, this is what I base as, I call it like the norm. This is your base, your default operating. Things should be really good here. So I'm going to just write good. It should be good. Like there's not a whole lot of things are going to negatively impact. Her hormones are pristine. She has her youth on her side. If you happen to get married, however, you're going to realize that you might have kids starting in here. And so kids, the hormones are the helping. The kids are going to hinder. Then from ages 30 to 40, we still have very good hormones. In fact, from 30 to 40 is like a woman's prime. This is absolutely the most fantastic time for sex for most women. They're very comfortable in their skin. The kids might be a little bit older, so physically less demanding. And so this is going to be from good to like great. This is probably from a woman's point of view, her peak optimal time. And I know that these are generalities, so don't come at me with, that wasn't like it for me. I understand, but I have to talk in generalities. All right, so then we start to hit 40, and this is the time when we're really going to start seeing perimenopause symptoms, where the hormones are now starting to make some pretty big changes. So this is a perimenopause. And then usually at 50, and like I said before, 51 is the average age for menopause, and then we go into menopause, okay? This is kind of like a questionable area. She could still be, having a decent level of desire, but maybe she's like me and she's starting to notice the dryness and she has to use more lube, or, this is kind of like the questionable time where her body's like making a change. So really from ages 20 to 40, the hormones are your friend. They're there to assist you, but you might have other lifestyle things that are getting in the way or potentially blocking that. But then you get to 50 and you get to full-blown menopause. Now this is the first time in our entire life it's an even kill. That even level is not a good thing because we have no sexual desire. At age 50, guys, this is when you really are going to have to step it up. If you haven't developed your sexual attraction muscles, you better start training hard, because this is coming. You're going to be hitting a marathon here. So if a woman's 50 and she's living to the average age, I believe was 80, 30 years of no sex, that's certainly not ideal, but the lifestyle is very conducive to this. Maybe your kids are finally getting out of the house, or they're close to getting out of the house, or you finally have the time and the money. You're able to go and do things. You're able to really just kind of reconnect with each other. And then lastly, we got to look at the relationship cycle and how it fits into this timeline here. So the majority of people have heard about the honeymoon phase, and that's the beginning of a relationship where everything is great. Everyone is just awesome. This man is the perfect man. This woman is the perfect woman. They could do no wrong. You guys want to rip your clothes off at each other. And if you're entering a relationship at 40, but it's the beginning of a relationship, this honeymoon cycle is going to hijack your brain with a big dose of chemicals, and it's going to override maybe anything going on hormonally. That's natural. You have the honeymoon cycle plus being 20 years old. The hormones are on high gear. There's like no better combination. I mean, you can even be at full 50 and starting a new relationship, and for the first couple years, despite her not having a whole lot of hormones going on, is going to be good. So the 0 to 2 year window here is going to be the amount of time that the honeymoon phase usually lasts. So not only do you have a hormone helper, but it is like on steroids. It doesn't get better than the honeymoon period as far as relationship happiness. Then the 7 to 8 years window, I wanted to put that up there because that is the typical rough spot. Most divorces will happen in the 7 to 8 year window period of time. So I wanted to make note of that when you're approaching a 7 to 8 year period of time, if you can get past that hump, it's going to come into play. So as you can see, there's a lot of factors to play into what's going on in hormones and why she's rejecting you one day and is open the next day and what is going on. But I can assure you guys that this was not a bait and switch. This was truly an ignorance on her part because our parents and society and the doctors have not made everyone aware of this eventuality and how biology is going to have a real impact on our marriage. So what's the fix here? The first thing here is that you start learning the biology so you can have realistic expectations. Where is she in all three of these categories? You're so inside your own head in the rejection and the hurt that you don't realize that maybe she's sad and upset with it too. And I totally get that you guys can never truly understand this because you're a man and you're not having to live it. You're only having to live with the consequences and the effects of it. So by understanding her hormones and what's going on in the month, what's going on in her life cycle of hormones is really going to give you a more realistic expectation. It's going to allow you to not take her rejection so personal. And it's going to help you realize that you need to start bringing some game. You need to start making sure that you're doing everything on your end to create sexual attraction and that you don't rely so much on where she is with her hormones. So realize that when she's rejecting you, it really probably isn't you. And that you have to realize that we are built differently. Also realize that you're going to have to strengthen your weak attraction muscles. You're going to have to make sure that your body is on point. You have to make sure your game is on point. You think that you could stop flirting? The thing that attracted your wife can just stop? No, it can't. You keep your body on point. You keep your game strong. You keep your mental mindset and your boundaries and your leadership within the marriage strong to enable that attraction to maintain and potentially even increase throughout the marriage. But the easiest fix is to get her on proper hormone replacement therapy. Like if there was an easy button, you know, those Office Depot easy buttons, the real red ones that you push and it says easy, getting her on a proper hormone replacement therapy and getting her hormones balanced is the easy button. It allows you to basically restore the assist. So everything that I discussed with you today is all foundational. And this is a sliver of what you're going to find in a new course that I'm developing that helps men address and fix a dwindling sex life in his marriage. So please know, gentlemen, that if you are suffering from a diminishing sex life with your wife, you are not alone. 25 to 50% of marriages are sexless, and sexless being defined as having sex 10 times or less in a year. But your marriage does not have to be one of them. If this course is something that might interest you, I'll go ahead and provide a link in the description until you can be notified when that course is released. And if you made it this far, you might as well hit that like and subscribe button. And with that, I'll see you guys next time.